Hey, before we start, here's an exercise for you to test out your shoulder strength. What we're going to do is, you can follow my pace. We're going to be doing 20 circles backwards with our shoulder, like this way. And I don't want you to cheat this exercise, so don't swing with your body like this way. Don't use your core and your shoulders. What I like to use, I keep my arm here. This kind of gives me a cue of where my rib cage is, so I'm not moving too much with my body here. So we're going to start simply rotating like this way, backwards with the arm. So we start. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Yep, the shoulder is already burning. And what we did here, what's the idea? We didn't have any sort of resistance, not even the slightest weight, external weights here. But still we can engage the muscle in an incredible manner. And why is that? Because by manipulating the control that we have over our shoulder, manipulating also the stability of our body, and then manipulating the tempo through which we move this. So I'm not moving like this way. I'm relatively fast, but relatively slow also. So I'm keeping everything still. Only thing, I'm isolating the shoulder movement. I'm moving it slowly so the muscles have time to engage during this movement. And there's no external weight, and I can get an amazing workout on my shoulder. This is not what people often realize. And when they look at some of these exercises where, for example, in Kung Fu or the stuff that I'm going to show to you, we're not going to be using any weights. But I've noticed those through experience to be an amazing exercise for the shoulders. And even like myself, when I'm doing mobility exercises for the shoulders, I rarely use weights, any kind of weights to do it. Even for the external rotation, I don't necessarily have to use any kind of weights for it to make it effective, because I have principles and I have techniques and methods to which I can make much better engagement and control over that shoulder than by just focusing on even just repetitions, or even just focusing on the amount of weight. So these two exercises I'm going to be showing to you from Kung Fu and Qigong are something that are based on this. And they have realized this, these ancient masters, this actually works in an incredibly well manner. And the first one is something that we learned in Taiwan with the Grandmaster Jiang Yushan. And this is not just actually a shoulder movement, and even both of these train a little bit different areas of the body than just the shoulder. Because essentially what I'm doing here, I'm going to go to a horse stance. I don't have to be super low. Even this is going to be quite a lot, because we are going to be doing this for a while. And the motion that we do is this kind of circular motion in front of our body. So in this one, I'm not reaching like behind my body. Just keeping the arms here in the front in a soft manner, flowing here. You do this for a minute, for a couple of minutes, and guess what's going to happen? You're going to feel it, and most likely even you're going to properly first feel your legs. So this movement is not just for the shoulders, obviously, and it's a very fundamental like warm-up pattern that we, for example, use in the Grand Circle course that we made with Jiang Yushan, like so. You're going to have a lot of grounding. There's a little bit of like slight motion from the legs, like so, and the other direction. So like I said, this also, the effectiveness is because you're doing it for some time. It's not like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 10 or something like that, and then you're finished. No, you're gonna stay there. You're gonna wait till something starts to happen. Usually it starts to happen really quickly, because people are not conditioned for this kind of movement, which you maybe noticed already in the first exercise that we were doing, just this, like circling the shoulder. You feel the muscles there, and it's surprising because many people think they might have strong shoulders, but when they do something simple like that, you're gonna feel it. So the benefits, as far as I see it, is the mobilization of the shoulder. So you're just going to have the natural motion, and you're going to have a very dynamic and even limber motion in your shoulder when you just practice those repetitions. That repetition is very important in lubricating the joint. And what happens when you have a really lubricated, relaxed joint? You can punch very quickly, very powerfully, and from different angles. That's what it really unlocks. And the other factor that comes from it, because we're doing it for a longer period of time, is the endurance. Like how many times you see guys, if they're for example fighting, and this is especially for martial arts, this whole movement, they start to lower the arms, don't have any more strength to keep them up, don't have even necessarily power to anymore hit or something like that. So being able to really maintain that sort of rotation for a really long period of time builds a lot of endurance. It builds endurance and it builds looseness and limberness to really punch fast and have a very movable shoulders overall. Not just the deltoid, but even here the scapula is moving constantly from, for example, the protraction, which is quite important when you're doing punching to really have that full reach with it. So the other factor that comes in this movement is of course the legs. Like I noticed before MMA, I was for example practicing a lot of horse dances and these other metrics in these kind of positions. And when I go there, we do for example like warm up in the start where you're like this slapping to the shoulder or you're trying to slap to the stomach, like you're kind of like this playing fight. I could stay so low and very effortlessly because I had just practiced staying in this horse stance and other also positions isometrically. So of course in the fighting you're not constantly here and that's not smart, but sometimes you are going to go there and it has a lot of benefits. Maybe you're jab from there and you gotta come like back up very quickly. So the leg power and endurance without even moving the legs is enormous with this kind of isometrics. Like even the grandmaster has really thick and strong legs. Why? Because he spends actually hours in this kind of positions. So you get that shoulder benefit from it. And you also get that endurance to your legs and a really good stable base. Like even like the punching and creating power, like so you can feel actually your weight in those legs. And then you have the looseness in the shoulders to throw those punches. So endurance, mobilization, and power, all from this kind of exercise, which to the outside, you wouldn't see those benefits necessarily, like with just, if you don't have background in training. The second exercise that we're gonna do, this is something that is in our Skill Master program, and it comes from the Wushu. And we call it the flying daggers. And essentially it's this kind of pattern that you do with your arms. And compared to, for example, this, it's a little bit more sharper in the sense that this is more very flowy and is not so explosive necessarily. This can be relatively like calm and fast, calm and slower tempo. Whereas when you do the flying daggers, I can do it slow, and it's also good, really good for shoulder endurance, by the way. I get so easily shoulders burned with this one. But it's the explosiveness that usually, like if you watch any like Wushu athletes or someone do this, you can also see this movement, by the way, in I think in Tai Chi and some martial arts movies as well. It's always done in an explosive manner. And if you look at what I'm doing, I'm rotating my hips at the same time. So here I am really doing this motion. Bam, bam. Well, where do you usually see this motion? Well, you see it in boxing, you see it in kickboxing, you see it in all possible like striking sports as you can imagine. They're gonna do this kind of rotation from their hips when they're doing it, and very explosively. So this movement, it develops very purely explosive hip rotation, core rotation that directly transfers to martial arts. And the coordination, the problem with this is it's pretty difficult. Like this one, it's just circles. This one has a really high level of coordination, which is why we teach it in so much detail in the Skill Master program, because you can't just like usually copy it like that and start to utilize it. So it has a much more complex coordination, which also actually is helpful in regards to, you know, many things, just to be able to do these more complex patterns with your arms and control them like together. So the power development or the mobilization, lubrication is a little bit similar because I'm really getting that full range of motion here. Like this, actually more range. This one is in the front. When I'm doing flying daggers, it goes from the back to the front. So you get all possible ranges actually covered. Really amazing for the shoulders. And I always feel that burn when I'm really training this motion. So explosive rotation from the hip, from the core. Both exercises develop the legs. In the Skill Master, I also teach more variations for this motion, this flying daggers, different variations that train the leg differently, develop the hips a little bit differently. So it's really one of my favorite movements at the moment for developing that kind of, or through a skill training to develop such functional actually power. Like a lot of times if you do some certain skills, maybe some calisthenics skills or hand balancing, it doesn't really transfer to this kind of stand-up sports or stand-up fighting. So in Skill Master we cover also other movements that are related to martial arts, can really help with the power production in different positions of martial or of fighting, of competing. But this is one of the best, really, the flying daggers movement that is really based on the Wushu. So these two movements here that we cover in the Qigong, and then we have this one. Both really amazing movements to train your shoulders, to have that sort of really relaxed motion, have a full range of motion in your shoulders, to be able to really move them in a, I would say, very pliable manner. And the power comes a lot from that sort of relaxation, being able to move them in a fluid, soft or sharp manner. And where does that power usually come from? It comes from the hips, it comes from the legs. The other one develops the leg power amazingly well in that horse stance. Other one develops those mechanics of delivering power. So those are the two movements from the Qigong and Kung Fu for your shoulders and actually for full body power.